said some different viewpoints.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Gwen Robinson with the FCCT. I'm actually going to pass over right now to Pierre Prakash with ICG, who'll tell you a bit more, and then I'll be back. So over to you. I should say, it looks like, as usual, more people signed up than turned up. There are seats at the front, and it looks like now we're past the regular time. So those sitting up the back, if you would like, there are empty seats here. There's at least 12 or more. So please feel free to come up and take those seats.
Thank you, Gwen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pierre Prakash. I'm the Director of International Crisis Group's Asia program. Thank you very much for coming this morning. We actually haven't had at Crisis Group an event like this in Bangkok for a long time, so it's great to see so many of you here, and we hope to be holding more such events about events in Myanmar, but also in other parts of the region in the future. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with international crisis groups, so just a few words of introduction. I don't want to eat into the time of the panel. I'll make it quick. We are basically an advocacy-oriented research organization that focuses on conflict prevention and conflict resolution. We have a network of analysts around the world who actually live and work in the countries or the regions that they cover. And that means that our methodology is very much driven by field research in the sense that we speak to people, we speak to conflict actors, we speak to civilian populations affected by conflict, to civil society, to inform our analysis. And the objective is for this analysis to then feed into practical, pragmatic, realistic recommendations for conflict actors themselves, also, of course, but also very often the wider international community in order to prevent, resolve, or a lot of the time mitigate the impact of conflict on civilian populations. When it comes to Myanmar, it's a country we've covered extensively for many years, much before the coup, obviously. But since the coup, we have documented the situation on the ground through a series of publications that you can all find on our website, crisisgroup.org. We also left some copies of recent publications on Myanmar at the table at the back, on the table at the back. And we basically decided to hold this event because we recently published a report, this report that you'll find in the back, which is about the TNLA, the Tang National Liberation Army, which is an ethnic armed group that operates in northern Shan state of Myanmar. And this report basically explores and documents how the TNLA has consolidated its territorial control and expanded its governance apparatus since the coup. And this is actually a trend that cuts across to various degrees different armed groups, different regions of the country in Myanmar, in the ethnic minority regions. We actually had another report out last year on the Arakan army in Rakhine State, where we had similar findings in the post-coup scenario. And so we feel that this growing cloud of ethnic armed groups in different parts of the country is a particularly important aspect of what's going on in Myanmar now, and has a wide range of implications, both immediately but also for the future trajectory of conflict and of national unity, I would say. I'll stop here and hand it back to Sure. We'll have a conversation for about an hour and a half. First, the panels will speak, and then we'll have a Q&A session. And after that, you're, of course, most welcome to stay with us for lunch. It'll be a good opportunity to follow up on the conversation and get to know each other. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to Gwen, who will moderate the panel today. Thank you.
Thanks, Pierre. As mentioned, I'm Gwen Robinson, Vice President at the Foreign Correspondents Club, Editor-at-Large of Nikkei Asia. And just wanted to say, as Pierre said, we're really pleased to see a not only a physical event, but particularly concerning Myanmar, which is an extremely difficult thing to achieve, and with such a fantastic panel of speakers who have come from, actually some of them have come from far and wide to be here today. So not only because this is a rare physical event, but also I think this panel would seem overly ambitious or perhaps even unrealistic at best, even a year ago, with its focus on emerging local governance structures in resistance-dominated areas of Myanmar. Now, I think this topic that we are addressing today, rebel governance in a changing Myanmar, is both topical and highly relevant and spot on. And it signposts a significant new phase in post-coup dynamics of Myanmar. Not only have alternative governance structures evolved, but the variety of local administration organisations in both ethnic and Burma-dominated areas is now being taken seriously, or more seriously, by international donors, INGOs, and it does appear increasingly by governments, at least in terms of who they will turn to, particularly in conflict-racked areas of the country, to discuss things like on-the-ground needs, from humanitarian aid to support for basic services such as health and education. I think it also highlights a real reality that after nearly 3 years, the military controls less and less of the country. In other words, that this coup has failed. It has failed to deliver absolute power that the junta so badly wants. It has failed to deliver compliance from the people, and most of all, it's failed to deliver economic control to the SAC. As mentioned, we have an outstanding panel of speakers here, and after, as Pierre said, after some discussion and a short presentation on the IEC, we'll take a few questions from the floor. And just a quick reminder, this event is not being live streamed, but it is being videoed and will be posted in coming days on the ICG and FCCT sites, our YouTube page. And as Pierre said, you are kindly invited to stay. There's a big buffet afterwards. So moving on, I'd like to just briefly introduce our excellent panel. To my immediate right is Nor Mayu Mutro, Senior Policy and Technical Advisor to the Karen National Union and Women's League of Burma. Next to her is Thomas Kean, Senior Consultant Myanmar and Bangladesh for the International Crisis Group and Editor-at-Large of Frontier Myanmar. Next to him is Ying Lau, Executive Director of the Salween Institute for Public Policy and a board member of the Shan Women's Action Network and founder of Burma's Manals Watch. Luckily, we don't have one of those today. And then next to him is Coup Ray, Director General of the Interim Executive Council of Karenni State and Chairperson and founder of the Kaya State Youth Network and Karenni Humanitarian Network. So I'd really like to start with the first victim is Tom. Tom, you recently, as we've heard, worked on a report examining how the TNLA, the Tang National Liberation Army, has expanded its control in northern Shan State and is now delivering services to residents there. It was also an incredible analysis of the evolution of what was a small and I think overlooked EAO. So perhaps you could give us a sense of what this administration of the TNLA looks like and how it has been received. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Gwen. So yeah, since the coup, the TNLA has significantly expanded its territory, taken territory from both the state and also other ethnic armed groups, particularly the RCSS, and now controls territory across maybe 8 or 9 townships in northern Shan State. Not necessarily the whole township, but parts of those townships. So it's significant, sizable area in the mountains in northern Shan State. And it's done this partly by avoiding conflict, so avoiding fighting the military. The TNLA had been fighting the Myanmar military for 10 years prior to the coup. And when the coup happened, it was an opportunity to dial back the fighting the military also didn't want to fight with the TNLA because it had a lot on its hands. So, you wouldn't call it a ceasefire, but there was an understanding on both sides that the situation had changed, and they weren't necessarily going to confront each other. And as the military sort of pulled back its troops, the TNLA filled the vacuum and was able to push out other ethnic armed groups in northern Shan State, mainly the RCSS. So there have been clashes recently in northern Shan State between the TNLA and the military, but the TNLA is now in a very powerful position. And certainly the mountainous areas that it has a firm grip on, it's going to be very hard for the military to get the TNLA out of those areas, particularly as they are Ta'ang, overwhelmingly Ta'ang residents in those areas. So the combination of territorial expansion and stability enabled the TNLA to strengthen its administration. Previously, it had tried to roll out a sort of self-government system, but when you're fighting a war, that's extremely difficult. But because of the stability that the coup brought to Ta'ang areas, it was able to do this more effectively. And the administration sits under its political wing, the PSLF. There's 11 or 12 departments. It's quite a sizable bureaucracy covering health, justice, information, and so on. And it's benefited from CDM. So a lot of government workers joined CDM, some in Ta'ang areas already, some in other parts of the country, and they fled to safety in TNLA areas, and they've been integrated into this bureaucracy. One feature of the system that I'd like to draw attention to is the role of CSOs. So like most ethnic groups, there's a strong Ta'ang civil society network. And I find it interesting because they have quite a high degree of influence over the TNLA. They have a shared history of emerging on the Thai-Myanmar border, and both the TNLA leadership to some extent and the CSOs have attended trainings and workshops, this is 2 decades ago, on things like human rights, women's empowerment. Women's groups are really strong in the Ta'ang civil society community. So the CSOs now are running an education system that's really quite large. We're talking hundreds of schools, and the TNLA has let them do that, but it needs them. Actually, it needs them to do that. It can't do it to run that school network itself. Many Ta'ang welcome, the TNLA administration. Ta'ang areas were traditionally neglected by the state, and so they welcome the services, but they also welcome what they see as the protection that the TNLA brings, both from the military and from other armed actors in northern Shan State. But there are other aspects of TNLA administration that are less popular, even with Ta'ang people, particularly recruitment. So there's a conscription policy, and the expansion of the administration system has enabled the TNLA to strengthen its recruitment process because it now controls more villages. In the past, it was easier for Ta'ang people to evade conscription by moving to state-controlled areas, but that's become more difficult now. So, on the one hand, welcomed in a lot of ways, but also there are tensions over things like conscription and taxation as well. But the TNLA is viewed very differently by other ethnic communities in northern Shan State, and this is one of the biggest conflict risks that arises from its expansion. Particularly the Shan and Kachin communities, feel threatened by TNLA expansion. And there are some aspects of how the TNLA has expanded that have aggravated those tensions. So flying flags, TNLA flags in mixed villages, erecting stone markers as a sign of sort of TNLA control over an area where it might be mixed control. And just in general, an expansion of Ta'ang people, because other communities know that if Ta'ang people move into areas that, say, were predominantly Kachin or Shan, then the TNLA is likely to follow that movement of people. So as Pierre said, I suppose this briefing was sort of the inspiration for this event, but this is definitely not a report launch at all. We really wanted to broaden it because it's part of a bigger trend. And although we're focusing mainly on what's happening in ethnic minority areas of the country, of course this phenomenon is happening all over the country, as Gwen said, including in central Myanmar, particularly in Sagaing region with the creation of people's administration teams. And I think this all just underlines, why this is such an important topic to be looking at now, because it's clear that state control, military control has shrunk so much, and that these administrations are, to some extent, filling the void or filling the vacuum.
Right. Let me leap over to another dimension of resistance and resistance administration, Tom. Earlier you looked at the Arakan Army's administration in Karenni State, which is very distinctive for various reasons. There's actually quite a few similarities between the TNLA and AA, including how they've managed relations with the military regime. You've highlighted in the report this kind of ambivalent attitude, which is possibly the path of least resistance. But what do you think are some of the key differences in terms of how they've built their self-administration, and maybe a few words about the AA structure?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that the TNLA is cooperating with the military or that the Arakan Army is necessarily cooperating either. It's sort of, they've identified that the most strategic approach for them is to position themselves somewhere in the middle. But, the TNLA, for example, has been training and equipping PDF forces at the same time, right? And that's very strategic for them to do that. They can push them out, create a buffer zone around their territory. So I don't want to give a sense that they're cooperating. There's no real formal dialogue happening between Naypyidaw and either the TNLA or the AA. But yeah, as you said, I mean, the AA has taken a similar approach. After a couple of years of very fierce conflict, using the coup to build a level of stability through an informal ceasefire with the military regime, that has enabled them to expand their territory, roll out services, just do things that are very difficult when you're fighting a war. They now control, a significant amount of territory in central and northern Rakhine. Structurally similar in the sense that their administrative wing is under the ULA, the political wing. And also, like the TNLA, they have an administration system that kind of echoes or mirrors the Myanmar state system with the General Administration Department. So like village tract offices, township offices, and so on. But there are a lot of interesting differences, I think. In Rakhine, many members of the AA bureaucracy are actually employed still by the state. So they've willingly been co-opted into this Arakan Army bureaucracy. Still paid by Naypyidaw, still officially report to Naypyidaw, but actually, for the most part, doing the bidding of the Arakan Army. It's only in some areas where the state has completely disappeared that the Arakan Army has established the system that is completely under its control. And there are some things that the Arakan Army hasn't even tried to do itself, like health, for the most part health, but particularly education. Education is still delivered by Naypyidaw, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, why spend a lot of money setting up your own education system when you can just effectively co-opt the system that's being funded by your enemy, basically? But they still exert a lot of influence over that education system. So you've got the Rakhine anthem being played, you've got Rakhine flags in the schools, but the teachers are paid by Naypyidaw. I think one of the really important distinctions between Ta'ang areas and Rakhine is that Rakhine State was much more integrated into the state, and its civil service on the ground is ethnic Rakhine, whereas in Ta'ang areas the state was much weaker, and civil servants were often posted from other parts of the country. They might be Burma, and there just wasn't a lot of Ta'ang people in the civil service, so you couldn't replicate the Arakan Army model in Ta'ang areas. So I mean, that means the TNLA doesn't, there wasn't a system in place that it could co-opt or a big pool of civil servants that it could draw on. As I said, it took advantage of CDM, to acquire capacity and resources. And but it's had to focus much more on sort of building its own capacity. So opening, for example, a school to train teachers for the TNEC, the education system that's run by CSOs, which is things that the Arakan Army hasn't had to focus on. And yeah, so I think the key point really is that each system of rebel governance is unique based on a range of factors, so geography, politics, the culture of the organization that's running it. You know, as I said, like the TNLA is closer to CSOs than the Arakan Army is, and that reflects sort of the political culture and dynamics of those different communities. So.
Thanks, that was a brilliantly neat explanation. So leaping over to another extremely strong area of ethnic governance, I'd like to turn to Nor May U. Nor May U, many of our participants here will have seen the recent KPSN Karen Peace Support Network report that examined the expansion of KNU territorial control and services in southeastern Myanmar and came up with some really impressive and astonishing statistics, including, for example, how the number of KNU-run schools has more than doubled since the coup. I think 370 state schools have been taken over by KNU administration. So as a senior advisor to the KNU, perhaps you could give us a sense of what this expansion of control looks like on the ground. What are the key points, especially in the context of the things Tom was saying about, you know, how each area is so individual. So give us a glimpse into KNU administration.
Thank you very much. I think when we look at the KNU controlled area or the works of KNU, different districts under KNU administration, there are 7 districts, and different districts will tell you different story. But if you look at it regionally from the northern part of the KNU district, so Brigade 1, Brigade 2, Tangu district, the Thong district, Nyanglebin district. The Thong district has until the coup had always been under the state's control, heavily under the state's control. So not very many KNU's activities or services provided. But with the expansion, as reported in the KPSN report, in those areas, many, and it's also kind of readily available pathway for people from the cities to flee or to relocate. So many people came to the region, came into the Thong district and to the border. So KNU, and those areas have always been under somewhat KNU also occupied. It's the KNU administrative area. So KNU also, the TNLA also occupied some posts, but for the Thong district, it's heavily under the Damodor's control. But after the coup, that changed. But I would say that KNU's expansion of control in those areas, it's made more available by the coup, but it was a strategic plan prior to the coup, right? Because you have to also look at connected with the NCA, the impact of NCA.
That's the ceasefire agreement.
The ceasefire agreement.
Of 2015.
2015. And NCA, during the, so KNU signed the NCA and had been able to do more activities without being disturbed by the Damodar. Not necessarily freely, but at the same time, being KNU in the district, in those control areas, KNU had services provisions. So to expand the services provision, KNU expanded also militarily. Because there were people already, the current people and the civilians already living in the area. So I think we have to look at it in connection. The ceasefire agreement signed, KNU expanded its activities, especially service provisions, and the coup. So more, like Tom observed, after the coup, more population increased. Among the population, there are humanitarian needs, the demands get higher. But at the same time, the CDMers came, so that it also added to the labor to provide services. So all these things on the ground for KNU, it's their control. Originally, their control area, but after the coup. The military, the addition of strength, labors coming from all rounds, KNU could continue the expansion relatively in a bigger way. But this also means for KNU to burden to shoulder the humanitarian crisis in the regions. So usually KNU would provide services for the Karen people, the Karen population. But it's not just the Karen now. It's the population affected by, population included all ethnicities affected by the coup. So this, the expansion comes with the burden as well as the labors, the additional labors, because people fled their workplace or hometowns. That's so for KNU, it's as always, it's advantages and disadvantages. With the advantages, they also face the striking amount of pressures to respond to humanitarian crisis, for example.
I see. And as with the examples that Tom mentioned earlier, the TNLA in Northern Shan, AA in Rakhine, they actually use ceasefires or lulls in conflict to expand their control. But KNU expansion, as you point out, has occurred in a period of extreme fighting sometimes and renewed conflict against the military regime. So what additional challenges do you think that creates in terms of governance and service delivery? Also, the very different needs from local communities, particularly with that pressure to expand, even if you've got a lot of CDMers. As you said, that's more of a problem sometimes.
Yeah. I think the challenges faced probably not very different from other, like for example, in Karenni State or other states. But in Karen area, this is within Karen State as well as beyond Karen State. Because after the coup in March 2021, that was the first airstrike against the Karen. Now airstrikes are not even used anymore. I was talking to Gloria, and it's not even used anymore, and we don't see it a lot, and people don't talk about it. The locals don't talk about it. They just take it as this is what
daily
we have
life.
to face. Yeah. So, but the first airstrike was in March 2021 against the one of the KNU camps, and the challenges, like I said, usually before KNU services were confined to the Karen population. So service providers and the locals, the local Karens, cooperations and relationship had been built for many years. It's not, but after the coup, it's not just the Karen population, it's different people. I think this is a challenge from all fronts, not just on practical ground delivering services, but also politically and socially. And I think for KNU, it's because of the experience, the Karen CSOs, because of years of experience managing the logistic and delivering services to the Karen areas, not a challenge. It doesn't, because every now and then they face this crisis, depending on the war. But when it comes to different populations coming together, facing the same threat, and you have to, when KNU has to address that, I think the KNU administration, regardless of how sophisticated it has been, right now the procedure, everything has to take into consideration of not just Karen. You are responding to the need of the demands from people other than Karen, and it has. The Karen, for example, the laws, the KNU administration, they would have, at best, they would have it in Burmese and Karen language. But usually the administrative officers would be Karen. And many of them, the local officers, do not speak Burmese. So I think this is where the KNU has to retrain, start from the beginning again to make sure that their officers can respond to population in need, not just Karen. So in terms of administration and the personnel responsible for the carrying out the task, that's from the technical point of view, it's also a challenge. But from the population, from social point of view, I think it's also a challenge. We can see that on social media. If you go on the ground, meet with the local villagers, you can hear from them that initially everyone was sympathetic, everyone was trying to be understanding. But after a while, it becomes a challenge. Who would receive what from who? So organizing all the assistance, even though everyone is in need, everyone in the region is under the same threat and in need, but if the responses, delivery of services are not well coordinated, it could cause unnecessary problems. And I think KNU has to figure that out from the start, because usually KNU is, even though familiar with responding to crisis, but crisis faced by the Karen people. Right now, KNU is responding beyond the Karen people, the need and the population other than Karen. So this is, it's a practical challenge that KNU face. While they had been talking politics for a long time, coexistence, so on and so forth, but this is what KNU is experiencing, responding to a situation where they have to coexist and make sure that all the principles that KNU has upheld for a long time, equality, inclusion, all these things, I think on the ground, this is the administration is facing in
right, even as they are escalating conflict and, you know, facing intensified bombing, right?
Yeah.
This is the particular challenge. Can you just incidentally, don't worry if you don't have that figure, but I think a lot of us are curious about what proportion, I mean, how many outsiders are Karen people hosting now in their areas? I mean, are we talking about an extra 25% of population or more? It seems like every third person is a CDM or a PDF or something. They're all sort of, you know.
I'm afraid I don't have the figure.
No, nobody
but
seems to.
in the Karen area, because when we talk about KNU control area, the KNU control area and KNU administrative regions, KNU does not necessarily control, like I said, for example, the Tone district, KNU did not control. It's KNU, one of KNU administrative districts, but KNU did not control. So in the Tong district, for example, many people fled from the cities and they would come. So they came into KNU administrative area. And now that the Naypyidaw administration is effectively falling apart, particularly in those regions, it becomes kind of like automatically becomes KNU responsibility to oversee this.
Right.
So I do not have the figure, but in district like that, in the Tong district and Nyonglip, especially the Tong district and Nyonglipin district, 3rd Brigade area, it's a mixed area, Karen and non-Karen, mixed areas. Those areas right now are, they have, so KNU is, particularly in those areas, KNU is responding to the humanitarian crisis and population other than Karen,
Right.
in addition to Karen.
Yeah, it's clear there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks very much. I'm sure there's people wanting to ask questions to follow that up. But for now, I'd like to turn to coup at the end over there. We're very lucky to have him here from far away. He's representing the Karenni Interim Executive Council. As most of you may know, the Karenni IEC is a new, almost brand new governing body that has been set up in Karenni State, which is also known as Kaya State. And Coup, who's the Director General, has prepared a presentation to run us through its structure and activities. We thought this might be clearer in slide form. So I think, Kuntam, we can show the slides. And I'd like to turn over to you, Coup.
Thank you. First, I would like to say to ICG for inviting me to share about our Karenni State here, and also who are participating here. Would like to request all of you please listen our our target. Also not only listen but also helping us, like stand with us where we are trying to do the federal democracy, to restore the federal democracy. So I would like to request all of you. Here just I would like to share only about the Karenni State, what we are doing, what kind of thing do we need, something like that. So here, yes, and for my presentation here, I have only 3 objectives. The first, we are strongly reject the military rule, especially we call the military coup. Yes, so right now we are defense ourselves, we defense our community, so we against the SAC, fight them. Yeah, this is the first objective. Number 2 is we are trying to build the border assistance to establish our own government in the Karenni State. This is the second objective. Number 3 is we are right now we already found some of the institutions like a health department, education department, something like that. We are trying to build institution, a strong institution in the local area. We try to serve our community. Yes, this our 3 objectives. Yes, this I would like to show in the Karenni State. In Myanmar, Karenni State is a very small, it's a smallest state. In Myanmar, also a few population. We just have only over 350 population in our state, but the fighting between SAC is very strong in Myanmar. So I would like to share here. Our state, we border with Thailand, like around 200 kilometers border with Thailand. This border with Thailand. We have a chance if this is the one thing. Right now you can look like standing in the Shan State to the end of the Thailand side. The main road, most of the main roads are fighting right now. Every day, our resistance armed group and SAC fighting every day. So this is our Karenni State. We had a relationship with Thailand. We had a good relationship before and also right now. They have something, yeah. And this. In here, I would like to show the Sanlui River. Across the Sanlui River, most of area we control the area. Yes. Also, here only SAC can control the Rigo township. In Karenni State, we have 7 townships. SAC only can only control the Rigo township, and other places also they can stay in there, Panellists. Other rural area, we resist the armed group control that area. So I will share more detail after that. So before the coup, our Karenni State is stable, like a no fighting between KNPP and NAC, KNPP and militia group. Also, we are stable. We are peace. Also KNPP talking with the Tamando ceasefire. We also signed the bilateral in the state level, but the KNPP not signed the SCA. And also the economic situation, we have the GDP and opportunity growing. After started 2011 to 2020, in that's year we have growing everything like also infrastructure and building every step like a state level like a village level, village level, township level, every set they are started how to say improving, and also the like everything is going positive direction. Yeah. Also political situation in that time we had a peace dialogue in state level. And also some of the like ethnic party are increased in the election 2050 also 2020. Yeah, and also we most of our Karenni people are free, how to say, greater freedom. We can go everywhere, we can go every time, something like that. But now everything are destroyed by the SAC. We cannot go to everywhere. So, yeah, after the 2 years in our Karenni State, we are fighting have become heavy, like they use the airstrike, also weapons, something like that. So we are fight together. We are fight strongly in our state. And but how to say thatတော်လာရေးကြာလာတဲ့နဲ့အများဟိုဘယ်လိုပြောမလဲကျွန်တော်တို့ကပို့ပြီးတော့စူးစီးပြီးမှကောင်းကောင်းမွန်မွန်နဲ့ဒီ SAC ကိုပြပြီးမှချနိုင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
As the revolution goes on, I mean, take it into the longer years, and that we resistant forces, and we solidify ourselves, and then we develop as united forces among us.
ဟုတ်နောက်တစ်ခုကဒီမှာတစ်ခုစိတ်မကောင်းစရာပြောပြချင်တာကကျွန်တော်တို့မှာလူတည်မှုတွေတားများနေတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ဒီအချိုးနဲ့ကြည့်မယ်ဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့တော်လာရေးအဖွဲ့အစည်းတယောက်တင်ရင်စကား10ယောက်တင်တယ်တပိတ်ထဲမှာပဲကျွန်တော်တို့လူထုကလည်းတယောက်တင်တယ်ဆိုတာကိုပြောပြချင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
And here I would like to highlight something which is tragic. The ratio of the casualty, the ratio, if the civilian, the one civilian was killed, and then the resistance fighter is killed, and at the same time the ratio is the same with the SAC troop. So the ratio among civilian population, SAC troops, and the resistance fighter is 1:1 ratio.
Yes, and here I would like to share about the control area. So SAC can control only 10%, another 65% controlled by us. Like especially in the rural area, we can control over 65%. The other 25% is we call the war zone. So this is the control area. So right now we are starting establish like a government body. We like do administration body service, provide some service to our community. Yes. Yeah, here you can see SAC. Like most of they just only can control in the Rigor. In Rigor, we have only over 30,000 people population. Under like 250,000 population, they have under our IEC control area. So yeah. So this the roadmap for change to we call the federal democracy. We are trying to we build a federal unit state. The first thing we had 4 members. We are participating in the NUG. Also 3 members in the UCC, and right now we had already found like a FSCC NUGM IEC. Yeah, we already found a commission. We are going to work it together. That means that we are based in the FDC. We not only how to say it. We are not only going. We are working together. We are trying together with the NUG, especially all the whole in Myanmar. Yeah, this our we call the interim arrangement roadmap. We had 9 steps. Right now we are reached in the like number 7. We already found the IEC. IEC is the interim executive council. Especially we call the government body. Yes. So. For the roadmap, after we found the IEC, KSCC, we also try to set at the transitional constitution. So yeah, this here I would like to share you, and in where we are trying to establish, trying to found the government body. We how to say we build with we based on the democratic institution like how to say
Yeah, kind of like the inclusiveness, trying to include the inclusiveness in what we are doing.
Yes. Yeah, here I would like to mean inclusive means not only the ethnic group but also the civilian, also civil society network, youth, women, something like that. So in the interim arrangement, at least 30% of women need to participate in every sector, like KNCC, IEC, administration, every level. We write down in the interim arrangement. So also another one is the youth. Right now most of the leaders are youth and women. So we can clear share about this here. Yes, thank you. And another one is this the structure. I think maybe a little how to say not clear. So this the stakeholder. This the stakeholder. We had the 8 kinds of stakeholder: ethnic group, CSO, strike committee, political party, individual, something like that. We had 8 stakeholder. After 2 years, we have a conference. In that conference, all of that stakeholder come together and we attend the conference. After the conference, we had this declare the interim arrangement. According to the arrangement, we reformed the KSCC. This KSCC role is especially make a policy paper, oversight the IEC, lead the political or something like that. This is a KSCC. After the KSCC, we had 3 pillars. The first, the judicial body. Second is the parliament body. The third is the government body. We call the IEC. So right now, under the judicial body, we have already found like 3 offices in the state. They are running. How to say. ဖြည့်ရှင်းတဲ့ကောက်တဲ့ပေါ်နေပေါ့နော်။မှာလာတိုင်တဲ့ဟာတွေဆိုလည်းသူတို့ဖြည့်ရှင်းနေပြီးကောက်တဲ့ပေါ်နေပြီဆိုတော့
Yeah, implementing like the dispute resolution mechanism by addressing and handling the case reported to this body.
Yeah, so also this parliament we just reformed the last month, so it's very new for us. We will try for the future. This here we will how to say we will call the Karenni State Interim Parliament. Yeah, KSIP. So this IEC. Another IEC we try to found a 12 department like health, education, humanitarian, defense and security, something like that. So right now we already found only the main. How to say not the main. I mean the ပိုအရေးကြီးတဲ့ဌာန၅ခုကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ဖွဲ့ပြီးသွားပြီပေါ့နော်
We have already established most prioritized department, which are 5 departments that we already set up.
Yes, and their 5 department is the home affairs, education, health, humanitarian, planning, finance, and transition. That 5 department we already found. So very soon we will more found some of the department like women and child, something like that. Yeah. So also the defense and security we are trying to do like this. So here I would like to share about our government design. The best of the interim arrangement, we found the IEC, and in place of the Prime Minister, we had 7 leadership. We had 7%. We call the collective leadership. But right now we just already found the 6%. Because one is for one more we I think maybe very soon we will how to say we will found he will participate in there. So in this in place of Prime Minister we have 7, 1 chair, 2 co-chair, 3 secretary, and 1 finance. Yeah. So this is our IEC cabinet member. So under this in 7 members, some are ethnic group, some are parliament, some are CSO, something like that, and so here we can call collective leadership. This is a new design for us. We also everything we are trying with a new design. So yeah, another one is we try to found a 20 department, small. Not too much in a small department, but we how to say. จิจิလေးနဲ့ပေါ့နော် site တေးလေးနဲ့ပဲဒီဆောက်ပြီးမှဒီလူထုတွေကိုဝန်ဆောင်မှုတွေပေးဖို့ပေါ့နော်
The idea is the start with the compact structure to provide the services the services effectively to the population and people.
Yes, and on the ground right now, we some township in the village and village level. We already found like a leader, like we call the chair and secretary. There's where we found that we not just select a leader. We do like a election process, but not too much formally. Yeah, we do like that. This the how to say Department of General Administration. Yeah. So here I would like to share a little bit about the 5 departments. The first, the home affair. In home affair, we coordinate with the NUG program, take that something like that. We right now we are working together some of the activity. Like this, and another home affair we have sub-department, 4 sub-department, immigration, emergency rescue, and GAD, also the police. So in that case of 4 sub-department and two of department are very fashionably in the ground, such as like administration and police. We had 9 police stations in the town in the Karenni. Yeah, and they also running. Yeah, this the one. Another one is the Department of Planning, Finance, Taxation. We try to we already found that department. We have started trying to do their work in the state. For planning, finance, and taxation, we hopefully to about the income, 3 kinds of income. The one is the taxation from the somewhat like businessman, transportation, something like that. And another one is the we are working. Collaborate with the NUG, some like selling the bond, something like that is the second income. Another the third income is that we hopefully from the like international community like INGO, NGO, NBC, something like that. This income we are hopefully that 3 types of income. Department of Health, right now we have over 200 staff and 99 clinics also in hospital in the ground. We are running, but we need everything like supporting like equipment, staff support, medicine, something like that we are need. Yeah, this is the basic challenge for us. Also another about the education department, we had over 350,000 CDM teacher, and we had over 400 school in the ground and over 40,000 students in the ground. We are trying to serve them. But right now they also run themselves like most of CDM. They lead the school and how to say open the school in the ground. Yeah. So in here also we need everything like a sporty. Yeah. So another way is we had 3 higher education, mean the National University. Also very soon we will open the medical college. That college some of the doctors from the overseas will lead the school and train our Karenni youth. Yeah. Another one is vocational education institution like we call social science college. Not college, social science school in the ground. They are already run it by themselves, but we will collaboration with IC and with them. We work it together for the future. Yeah. Department of Humanitarian. This is a biggest need and challenge for us. Over 150,000 IDP flee to the jungle and stay in the camp, so they cannot do anything like agriculture, like cultivation, something like that. They cannot, so they need for food day by day, something like that. Also, 100,000 host community, they cannot go to the town, so they need everything. So we IC humanitarian department try to serve them, to help them. This the department of humanitarian needs. Yeah. Okay, this is my presentation. If it's not clear, you can question me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Kuklare. That was actually one of the first clear explanations I've seen of this emerging new structure. So I think that was extremely special to get that kind of briefing, and we'll come back on questions later. So now I'd like to turn to, last but not least, Ying Lao. So we've heard so far about various different models and approaches to governance in Myanmar's border areas, but there are also many examples we haven't touched on, including the KIO, the Kachin Independence Organisation, and the WA. As someone who has worked extensively on federalism, how do you see these systems potentially fitting into a future federal Myanmar? And, you know, how do you think it would work, given they're so diverse? I'll throw that at you.
Thank you. First, I will not be talking about KIO or the WA. This is
all
not
right.
my area of expertise. And I think the people of Karenni State and the people from the WA state should be the ones speaking on, on their own systems. For me, I like to talk about the issues of local government. In fact, this is not new. We have been talking about this for a very long time, but it has never really given a chance to practically truly emerge. I like to revisit the issues of one is the state constitutions. We have been, the state constitution drafting process has been ongoing since 2001. And we have had 8 states, the constitution of 8 states. You would thought that, wait, is she wrong? No, I'm not wrong. It's 8 states. There are 7 states that we all know of. And then there is the TNLA states. Some people from the TNLA region initiated the constitution drafting process, and they call their state constitutions, and they call it the TNLA states. So we have the draft of the constitution for 8 states. And in all of those states, they have also imagined what kind of governments they want to run in their own state, their way of expressing their rights to self-determination. And this is very important. Please allow me to also revisit a little bit of history. Oh, here comes history. Now we're also going to start fighting and debating. One really fundamental issue is we keep saying this, what's that? Competing and conflicting historical narrative, right? If you listen from or if you study from the dominant historical context, you would think that this union has existed since the beginning of time, and somehow it just happened to be very diverse. In reality, I believe that most of you know that that is not the case. This union only emerged in 1947. It emerged in 1948 when this particular map gained independence from the British. Then what were they before that? Before that, they were separate. They want a union. They were separate. How they have been separate, living separately, that's one part of the story, but I'm going to talk about the second part, how they came together. They voluntarily joined to form this union. That's their way of exercising their rights to their sovereignty. That means even after they joined the union, the sovereignty remained with them. They did not surrender their sovereignty to the union. That is the basis of the claim for self-determination for all these different member states. The Shan, the Kachin, the Chin, the Karenni, particularly the Karenni. This is us always joking to our Karenni brothers and sisters. You were perfectly independent. Why did you join the union? Why? So they were like, yeah, our leaders they weren't really thinking straight maybe at that time. This is us joking amongst each other, but the Karenni were perfectly independent. They actually joined the union. So this is the basics of all of these self-determinations. And this has been the debate since the day one of the union. Where did the power come from? How do we do the power sharing? Federalism is all about power sharing. It's not about the union being so generous that it bestows some of its power to the state. It's about the state voluntarily joining this union. Without the state, this union would have never existed. Without the sovereignty and the power that the state granted to the union, this union would have never existed. However, the dominant narrative has always been that there has always been the union, and then this state trying to take this union apart, trying to disintegrate the union, any calling for the rights to self-determination, the rights to govern our own territory, our own people, our own land, has always been considered as the enemy of the states. And it's time to change that narrative and to reassert our own narrative. That is our right to self-determination. Now, back to your question, Gwen. So the debate has always been between the union and the state, and how do we share this power? And has very little been about how do we organize even our own, within our own states. That's where the state constitution's drafting process came in. That's where we were tasked with exploring all these different models, different design for exercising our own rights to self-determination within the state. That's the local government. Now, there has also been a debate on these two very tiny little terms called government and governance. There was one occasion where somebody fixed my grammar. Every single word I used government, this person changed it to governance, and there was a long debate. Because I wasn't talking about governance, I was talking about government. While the governance existed before the government actually exists, but most of those governance structures are rarely the creation of the state. It has always been used as the instruments to assert the dominance of the central government. Has never been about right to self-determination. It's never been about the local communities, never been about the states. It has always been those governance structures that we have had in our countries has always been about the center asserting their dominance over the states. This is when we are talking about the state constitutions, we need to talk about where those powers of the state come from and how those powers are going to be shared among all those different localities. Then, one last point, sorry. One last point is about the function of the government, the governance side of things. We're talking about the government as in, within a federal structure, we have the state government. Within the states, territories, we have local governments. Those are the structures, the three different levels, layers. Then, when we talk about the governance of things, we're talking about what it is that exactly we want to achieve. Why are we even bothering talking about this? Then the answer is, we really want to allow all these different diverse community to be able to exercise their power, to be able to participate in these political processes. Historically, our countries has always been dominated by the majority, be it ethnic majority or religious majority or even gender majority. Number-wise may not necessarily be majority, power-wise, they has always been the majority. There has always been the dominance. In case it's not clear, it's the men. This, right, we wanted to make sure that these local governments, we were asking about how do we manage these diversities. We don't have to manage the diversities. The diversities will always be there. As long as there is a system, a structures that is fair for everyone, that would allow everyone to be able to participate in this democratic process, this administrative process, I'm sure everyone will be happy. It's about the rule of the game. It's never really about the result. But for our country, the rule has never been fair, the rule has never been clear, the rule has never been truly discussed and considered.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ying Lao. That was extremely concise and punchy description. But can I just ask you about both timing and form of what you're talking about? Back in May, you wrote an article in Asia Times stressing the importance of not waiting for federalism to emerge from the top. And you were saying that it could be built from the bottom up immediately by strengthening local government and local governance institutions. So let's talk about how this process could be accelerated, facilitated, especially also by outsiders who might be supporting that process, and how can it be done in a way that ensures, say, that outsiders supporting this process aren't influencing it in a negative way. You know, you get it.
All right. Thank you. I'm really glad you mentioned the article. I kind of forgot about it. Like I said, we have been talking about this, and do we really have to wait until we finish debating about this thing? Actually, we don't have to, because you can see that in the Karenni State as well as in the Karenni State, in a very extremely embarrassing and limited way, also in the Shan territories as well, the local government, the local governance has been happening ongoing. They have been providing services to the public. So then, how do we go about doing that? I think different states are in different unique situations, so they are approaching their situation very differently. I would say that for the Karen and Karenni states, I really admire, because as I try to help build the local government structures in Shan territories, I'm not saying Shan state, I'm talking about Shan territories, I realized one thing. I realized that the Karen and Karenni communities very resilient. I try to identify like what exactly is that make the Karen and Karen community very resilient. Their CSO also resilient. Somehow, even though there is some infightings, they manage to work together very well, especially if compared to the Shan. That's where I came across this one thing. It's called community organizing. It's extremely basic. If you look at it, if we're looking at it from the national level policy thinking, regional level policy thinking, and all of a sudden you talk about community organizing. It's extremely basic. It's very basics. But that's where we comes in. My institution, Salvin Institute, was requested by some of the Shan's, one of the Shan state armies, to help them train their training officers, officer training school, you know, the trainees of the officer training schools. And then I try to think about like, how do we train them on administrations? Can't really go and talk about separation of power and 3 branches of government and you know all those political science jargons. That won't work because they don't know how to use it. There is no existing structure. There is no reference point. That's where I discovered this community organizings, community development trainings, because in all those community development trainings, you have all these different components that is necessary for a government. You have a needs assessment, you have to interview the villagers, you have to do the participatory action research, you have to do the, you know, all of this people ownership on all this, any development project, any problems happening in any single communities. That's where we start, that's where we begin. That is when I started to think about, this is where we do, this is how we build a government from the bottom up. You start from one village after another, and collections of those villages will become a township. Collections of those townships will become a strong state. And the collections of those strong states, then we will achieve a strong union. Otherwise, we'll never achieve that union we're talking about. And we don't have to wait until this man up there finish debating. We can actually start from the bottom up.
Thank you. I think that partly answers what is my final question before we turn to questions from the floor. I'd just like to ask each panellist a very briefly, your view, and this is to address a lot of the people who are in this room as well, and all the all of us who care and follow Myanmar, given the trends we've discussed today and the developments, what do you think are the implications for donors, foreign governments, NGOs, I mean, even media covering all this, who might look to support the people of Myanmar? What kind of, say, programs, partnerships, support would be relevant and most helpful if initially the aim is to reach people in need, but also maybe help facilitate processes of federalisation, democratisation, whatever? You know, how should external stakeholders be adapting to the changes we discussed? So maybe you want to start?
Yes.
Okay, keep it short. This is a short one.
Because I also wanted to mention one other thing. This is relevant to your question as well. How the international community can help and how you're not helpful. We talk about how to do things, right? The community leadership, the community development, all of this thing. One really important thing to be very mindful of is the idea that, you know, we cannot go around and preaching federalism and talking about federalism all the time while at the same time investing all the fundings and supports to the extremely centralized structures. And that has always been the case. That has been the case. One in particular, one of our brothers mentioned this federal, what's that? The Federal State Coordinating Body? Council. Something, commission. Yes, Federal State Coordinating Commission. This is wrong. It's clearly saying this is wrong. This body is wrong. Was the objective right? Yes, maybe the objective is right because trying to coordinate between the federal government and the state government. Is this the right body to carry it out? No, absolutely not. National Unity Government is an executive body. Their job is to govern, not to write any constitution, not to dictate anyone to do anything. Coordinate, maybe, but they're not the ones who should be starting this, but they're doing that. And anyone supporting that process, you're supporting a centralized government. You're not supporting a federal government. You're not supporting a federal system. So this is how not to do it. Now, how to do it? So the how to do part is, I think it's twofold. One is to actually try to spend some time getting to know and getting yourself familiar with all these different state level bodies and local level bodies. That's the very first step. The second step is also to make sure that all those supports, all those fundings get directly to the people who are in need, not through different layers of international agencies and mechanisms and this and that and bombarding those local organizations with paperwork. Those are not very helpful, even though I'm sure all this organization, including my institution, we appreciate the funding and the support we receive from the international community. We do not really appreciate the paperwork.
Neither does
Thank you.
anyone, actually. Thank you. All right, that was good. What not to do? Over to you, Tom, maybe. Or should we go with?
Yeah, maybe coup.
Okay, coup, and as we heard, I think Karenni has particular needs of support, particularly outside support.
Yes, thank you. How to say with this, so we are not too much different with my in-law. But one thing I would like to share here, when we are trying to build the federalist democracy in state, the first thing we need to build a strongly institution in the Lugar. After that, we can go to the federalist system, the federal democracy. Yes, number one. Another one is right now we are trying to do the administration like a police, something like that. If the under humanitarian need, the international and external community can help as like directly to the local, we no need to more focus for the humanitarian needs. We just focus the first SAC administration for the community and how to say the first security for our community. Is more we can quickly forward going to the federal democracy idea. So we need international community to support stand with us support funding to directly to the community. Yes, this is Mike. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. And now to you, Mayu, just, how could the outside community...
In a situation like this for Burma, obviously the needs are mounting, and it's big, right? Big is understatement. But two, I would like to point out. One is, of course, obviously financial support. So for governments like IEC, or administration like KNU to carry out, to perform a task under this situation, under these circumstances, it's more than they ever imagined. And coordinating the technical and logistical aspect is one challenge, but financial support is something that readily what international community, donor communities could coordinate and extend that support. Because if you look at the country, the failure and the country, the humanitarian crisis in the country, the nationwide, the whole country, the burden right now is on these state governments or state administrations like IEC, KNU, and TNLA. These local administrations are shouldering to respond to the crisis that is in the country. So financial support is a must, I believe, and it's quite obvious. But another is, like Yin Long said, and I should like to echo that, more of the not to do. Because if you look at and read the reports and the analysis of the situation in Myanmar right now, there is another challenge that does not receive a lot of attention, is the violence against, the gender-based violence and violence against women. In the revolutionary area, the areas under control of revolutionary forces, and we are not even talking about violence committed by the Damador, because that's a given, and we always know, and we have always been against and fighting, speaking out against that. But right now, under this situation, situation of women, and I think this has to be addressed, because if we do not address that, how we are, in Burmese there is a saying called you are taking care of and addressing, responding to humanitarian crisis, but you are also nurturing violators, perpetrators of the crisis. So I think this has to be balanced out, and when we think of a solution, what to do, how to help, I think it's inevitable. It's kind of headache, but I think it's inevitable. We have to look at it and address that. And the not to do part is Burma, like all other society, is a patriarchal society. And gender sensitivity is very low to zero. And I think international communities can help because probably international communities, we are also facing the same challenges, but at least we are exposed in the international community. We are exposed. We have to talk about this. We have to face this. We are being deterred by the laws and whatnot. So when we are supporting the Burmese or the people of Burma, different communities, I think it would help a lot to take that into consideration and to respond it accordingly, so that we are not going to be responding to humanitarian crisis and perpetuating those who caused the crisis. And this is not just, when we talk about gender violence, gender-based violence, it's not, perpetrators are not just the Damadong. Now perpetrators are, this is a social problem. So I think this is one area that we still need a lot of attention from media, because we need to tell the stories for people to know. And then from research institutions, because we need to understand where the problem is rooted, where it came from, etc., etc. And then, of course, every one of us together trying to find ways by having more dialogues, more discussion on this.
And you think also financial support.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. Thank you.
And thank you. And finally, last word, Tom.
Yeah, thanks. Just very quickly, I think I'm going to be echoing a lot of the points that we've just heard. But yeah, I think it's really about, yes, there's the need for financial support, that's clear, I think. But it's about viewing sort of non-state administrations more as potential partners. I still feel that there's a kind of automatic bias in favor of the state and a tendency to see ethnic armed groups in particular negatively as disruptive forces, as spoilers that are undermining the state. But the military, through the coup and its response, has shown where the main problem in Myanmar lies. So I think we need to move beyond this idea, at least in a Myanmar context, that non-state governments or rebel governments, as we were talking about them, are somehow less legitimate. They've always been a part of the landscape in Myanmar, but now we're seeing more than ever how important they are, particularly in a conflict context, when the country is so conflict affected. But at the same time, you know, it won't be necessarily easy to work with these administrations. As we've been talking about, they're all different. KNU is very different to the IEC. It's different again to the TNLA administration. So they're unique. They require different sort of modalities and different ways of working together. But I think each of them, you know, they do present an opportunity to work together for the betterment of people living in those areas. But we can't just expect them to conform to, you know, here's a pot of money, here's the sort of the paperwork you've got to fill in, here, you know, send us all your receipts, get 3 quotes, all this kind of thing. That's not going to work.
Sounds like you've done a bit of that.
There's a crisis in Myanmar, and we all need to rise to the challenge, I think, and it works both ways. Right. And just the last thing, similar to what Normayu said, I mean, I think it's really important. A lot of these administrations are led by ethnic armed groups, but it's really important, I think, to try and strengthen civilian leadership in these contexts. You know, working with ethnic politicians, CSOs, and make them as inclusive as possible. So, you know, ensuring that women are playing a leading role. It's one of the great things, I think, about the IEC as well. You saw 2 out of the 6, not quite 50%, but in a Myanmar context, I think that's a step forward. So, you know, not to undermine the leadership of armed groups, but to ensure that they take into account a wide range of perspectives and are properly reflecting the diversity of the communities that they're representing. Yep.
Thanks very much. Look, there is a ton of other issues that we'd like to go into, but we're really out of time. I mean, for example, some of the work Mayu has also been doing on putting the focus on promoting or giving women more of a participatory role in leading. I think this is where EROs and all the ERO structures, like Ying Lao, you pointed out, falling down a bit. There's a lot of exclusionary gender issues in all these organisations. But anyway, this is the topic of another panel. And now I'd just like to turn it over to the floor. If anyone would like to ask a question, we can take a few. We've put off the lunch for another 20 minutes or so. There's a delicious buffet up there afterwards. I can see we've got an eager questioner there. Tony, just identify yourself.
Tony Davis, I write for Jane's Defence Publications. This is a question specifically for Tom on the TNLA, and I think it relates very directly to the question of governance. The question is this: how does the TNLA relate to the issue of narcotics in northern Shan State? Because there seems to be a fundamental tension. The TNLA rose, as I'm sure you pointed out in your piece, which I've yet to catch up with, but the TNLA rose on a very hard-line counter-narcotics policy, right? And this goes back to its fights with the Pansay militia, this, that, and the other. So, as far as I'm aware, that policy, hard-line counter-narcotics, has been maintained at the local level and is presumably spreading with the spread of governance. On the other hand, the TNLA live and are expanding in the heart of darkness. So on the Burma Road, Musay, Lashio, Mandalay, they are sitting on one of the main arteries where precursor chemicals are coming into the billion-dollar narcotics industry in Shan State. Their closest ally is the UWSA, the WA, who preside over much of the narcotics production in Shan State. So the question is simple. How do they deal with this? And underlying the question is the supposition that TNLA governance is not based on taxation of tea growing in the Shan Hills. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, Tom.
Take them one at a time. Yes, that was in the briefing. Yeah, no, you're right. It's there is a fundamental tension there, but they did rise to power, return to Ta'ang regions through a very strong anti-narcotics campaign. Yet they are positioned in Shan State, which is the center of the methamphetamine, production in Asia. And taxation of the highway is one of the main sources of income. I think your observation that their income comes from tea is probably right. I mean, sorry, that it doesn't come from tea is probably right. I think Ta'ang communities as well, a lot of them have been affected by a decade of war. Before that, state neglect. These are not particularly prosperous areas. There's a difference again with the Arakan Army where Arakan Army is taxing every month Rakhine households. But in the TNLA areas, it's not as formalized as that, and I think it's a deliberate strategy not to place too much burden onto Ta'ang communities. So how do they manage that? Well, I think it's actually driving some conflict because they look for alternative sources of income as well. There's a limit to how much revenue I think they can extract from anything that's connected to the drug trade. And this is driving an expansion in part. There's been tensions with the KAO over taxation of gold mines, for example. Fighting in around Ceylan, like around Namkham, which seems to be aimed at securing an entry point into China for trade, for commerce. So the need to find non-drug-related revenues is driving conflict in northern Shan State with other ethnic armed groups and also with the Tatmadaw, with the military. So that's part of the problem for the TNLA and what they have to try to work through. But certainly, being openly involved in the drug trade, I think as soon as that happens, it would undermine support for the TNLA in Ta'ang communities, because one of the benefits that Ta'ang people see as the TNLA has expanded in recent years is that they have cracked down on narcotics in Ta'ang areas. That's been one of the things that comes through. Like the benefits are often listed as education, which wasn't always there previously, and anti-drug campaigns in villages. So they're maintaining that. That hasn't changed, and it's fundamental to their support. So.
Thanks very much. Hui, if you can introduce yourself.
Tan Hui from the Straits Times. I have two questions for all panelists. So the first is, how disruptive are the airstrikes of the SAC to the administrative systems that you just described? And secondly, how dependent are these systems, these administrative systems on external funding? So we know that SAC has imposed banking restrictions, right? How has that affected these administrative systems?
Sorry, can you just that last bit? You're saying SAC imposed restrictions on banking and money, financial.
Financial, yes.
So how are those restrictions?
Yes. So that's tied to how dependent are these systems on external funding.
And is that directed to?
All panelists.
Right. Okay. Very briefly, I mean, perhaps start with you, Mayu. As
the airstrikes, I was just asking Gloria if the battles, fighting continues in Karenni State, because I have not been following the news for a few days, and he said yes, it's very much heated. And I asked the airstrikes, and then apparently, yes, the airstrikes continue, and it's very ignorant on my part, because in Karenni State and Karenni State, at least in these two connected areas, geographically connected areas, the airstrikes, when I have been to the Karen area, so the airstrikes, when airstrikes happen, it not only it causes the increase of IDP, more humanitarian, more population that would need humanitarian assistance, but also to realign all these the programs, realign the programs, readjust the programs by the CSO and their local administrations. So for example, the school structure, the health facilities, those have to be. One hospital in the 3rd Brigade area, for example, it's pretty elaborated, providing many sophisticated health support. But because of the airstrikes that constant and it's under constant attack, they have to have like shadow hospital. So it disturbs and the locals, people who come to the hospitals, for example, are from different regions. From the Tone, they come to this hospital. From Taungu, from it's in 3rd Brigade area. So every region, at least on the northern part, come to this hospital. But because of the airstrikes threat, the hospital has to go under hibernation, kind of. And people, when communication also break down, people don't know where to go. And then the route, because we do not have, usually those areas, we climbed mountains. You know, everywhere we wanted to go, we had to climb. But only these days, recently, they started to have car roads. But because of airstrikes, but car roads are limited. Because of airstrikes, if the transportation, the car road got destroyed, then it also caused problems, collateral problems for receiving and transporting patients. So these, and the schools in Karenni State, for example, they had to relocate. And when they relocate, parents, children, the school could relocate, but the students could not go all the times along with the school because the children have to stay with the parents, or parents do not want to let the children. So educationally and also health-wise, the airstrike, even if it stops and if it is not as frequent as before, still cause instability in the region. And the instability like that, in turn, has impact on the services the service provision, because service provision had to go with programs, plans, and arrangements. And then when that instability takes place, those arrangements also fall apart. So it's very challenging in that sense. The financial restriction. And I think if you look at the situation on the ground in the cities right now, if you listen to the people daily, you can see that the restrictions has a great impact on the SAC. But whether it is a good thing, I think we have to look critically into that. We have to look carefully before we can say it's a good thing, because every time SAC feels pressures, the immediate response goes to the people. the ordinary people. The immediate response goes there. But long term, so we have to weigh that for long term, short term. But it does have impact on SAC. You can see that how they restrict people's ability to withdraw money, to have transactions, private transactions. Right now, the people who work abroad, the ordinary people who work abroad, how their families are being pressured to report their income, etc., etc. So I think if you look at that, just the life of the ordinary people on the ground, apparently the restrictions have impact, the financial restrictions have impact on the SAC. On the the ethnic and the local administrations, the governance, that the impact will have the same. But I think I do not have any figures, but people who do research on the local governance, they know better, and especially if they work with service provision, I think that impact is felt too.
Right. Thank you. That was a good rundown. Kuklore, also with Karenni, I'm sure you could say something about impact of airstrikes. Also, I think was that the sense of your question on the financial restrictions? Also, I suppose how it's impacting overall, like, you know, running a state administration or ERO administration. So.
Yes. For our Karenni State, we have right now we are trying to do two ways. One way is yes, sure, we cannot withdraw the money like in the town, so we use the other way. So here I would like to not mention about that way. Another way is right now we are trying to use the Thai back. Like Mese, border with the Thailand, no one not use the Myanmar cha, they use the Thai bus. Also for the whole town, for the whole state, for the future, we try to use the time by in this period. For the future, I'm not sure, but right now we do like this kind of two way. Yeah. So I felt that for our administration is very much it's very difficult for us to about the financial support. Yeah.
Right, and also on airstrikes, I think you have the highest displacement rate of any state, really.
Oh yes, I think not too much as the same with the current, but also right now we IEC prepare like a early warning system. With some we are right now going the like some more pilot project with especially for the school and some of the camp. If the airstrike come, we make an early warning system, something like that. Also, we how to say, လူထုတွေကိုဒီကျေးပုတ်ခုံကျေးတွေပေါ့နော်များများတူးနိုင်ဖို့အဲ့ဒီဝေးပဲရှိတယ်ကျန်တဲ့ဟာတိတ်မရှိဘူးလေဆိုအဲ့ဒီဘက်ကိုကျွန်တော်တို့အများကြီးအားပေးမတူလို့အဲ့ဒီဘက်ကိုပဲတွားတာတွေများတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Yeah, the providing the early warning is the one thing. The second thing is to encouraging the local population to dig by themselves the hiding hole or the bomb shelter or the airstrike shelter by themselves.
Thank you. Yeah, Minglan.
I like to talk about the financial situation. For the financial situation, I would say two things. One is during the 5 years leading the coup, the NLD government has done a very good job as restricting those, financial transactions. For that, the many political organizations, CSO, have to resort to very other creative ways to get around all those restrictions imposed by the NLD government. So when the coup happened and when the COVID coup happened, those restrictions are not necessarily new per se. Obviously, it's more dangerous than before to have lots of suspicious transactions and things like that. But because of the existing restriction that has existed before, this kind of organizations have been very resilient and have been creative in making sure that they are able to access their fund, they are able to disperse those fundings to the local communities and local organizations. Now, in terms of the questions of these local governments, whether they are very dependent on the external help in many ways. You can see that the people of Burma, generally speaking, are very resilient and very resourceful. But at the same time, there is always limit to those resources available within the country. So right now, they still need to heavily rely on the external help. This is the reason why we have consistently calling for, at least in terms of humanitarian support, two things. One, the cross-border assistance, that the humanitarian aids don't go through the military, but actually go across the border and go directly to the service providers. That's number one. Number two is particularly, I think, to the Thai government, to also establish a humanitarian corridor to allow this kind of humanitarian assistance to go into those areas that are in need quickly and effectively. These are some of the things that we have been doing. So if by looking at these activities and these calls, you can see that the communities are heavily relying on the external help. That's pretty much
Right.
what I want to say.
Thank you. Succinctly summed up, as usual. And on that note, unless there is anyone with a burning question, or unless any of you panelists have something burning. Oh, Tom, I didn't ask you, do you have a view on this financial?
Oh, no, that's okay. I've spoken enough, I think.
Okay. No, I just think it was a brilliant panel, a long overdue discussion, really great spread of views that really balanced out, and I think gave a really rare picture to all of us here today. So I'd really like to thank the panelists for coming and for giving us such insights, but also ICG for for actually initiating and driving this event, and particularly Marguerite there. Thank you so much for all the work you put into this, and also to all of you for coming, and hope you will stick around. Pierre, do you want to say anything, or no? All right. Well, look, with that, we'd just like to invite you to have a bite before you go. I'm sure the panelists will be lurking around, so don't let them get indigestion. Let them eat something first. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. As mentioned, the video should be on ICG's website and our YouTube page in coming days, weeks, next week.